All right, we have adjourned from an executive session meeting, Real Estate and Open Space Committee, and we will now go into our regular session meeting for February 21st, 2020. As required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing none, we will call the regular session to order. All right.
Do you want to maybe go out of order, or since we don't, it's 9:30.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just, you might want to, if Amy comes in and I see there's something from the conservation
Yeah.
agent,
Okay.
or the updates might go fast, you know.
Okay, we will go out of agenda order here and under old business. Update on 276 Queen Anne Road property. We gave our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that it remain as town municipal property until the foreseeable future. So that's off our list.
And we didn't get anything back from them, correct?
No,
And they didn't discuss it at any other selectmen's meeting?
no, they did not. Amy, so if we don't hold you up, would you like to discuss Grassy
B?
Pond?
Sorry, Grassy Pond?
Yep.
You're not holding me up. I actually have a few interests here too.
No, you want,
so,
if you can, yeah, you can join us up here if you'd like, or
Sure.
whatever.
Oh, did we
Oh, first
approve
we have to
minutes?
approve the minutes from the January 17th, 2020 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 17th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Okay.
Just to be honest, when I saw item referred to by conservation agent, I was a little confused because literally in the past few weeks, I've had a handful of people come in here from different properties in town saying, we want the town to buy our property, how do we do it?
Oh.
So, I wasn't sure which one made it onto, so you may be seeing,
possible vote on property referred, so you can refer whatever.
yeah, so, well, if this
Grassy
is-
Pond
if
has
you're
been on our
talk-
table for
If
a
you're
long
talking
time.
about Grassy Pond, yep, and it's about 22 acres. It is, it abuts existing conservation land. It is wet, it is, we have an owner, the owner it's a trust, trustees in Falmouth. And it's been a little bit difficult being in touch, but, essentially and Kathy sat down with me about this before too, they owe more in back taxes than the property is worth.
Right.
And we have met with HCT as well as individuals from the state to talk about how the whole Cold Brook restoration could be enhanced and expanded upon if we were to have this parcel or parcels as well to contribute to restoration there. So it's been on our list for real estate and open space and conservation as a priority for quite some time now. We are continuing, and at this point it might be through lawyers, to try to be in touch with the trust, because my efforts have not been, I haven't gotten any information from anybody. I've sent letters just basically asking, if they were interested in talking to the town about acquiring the property. By the way, you owe this much in back taxes, things like that, and I haven't gotten responses. So,
As we learned at our last meeting, the tax collector will put that into foreclosure if we
Right.
vote on that, so we can
Yeah.
just do
We
that.
can ask that she proceed.
Yeah, that's probably the best step to do.
So just for purposes of identification on this map
yeah,
here,
Okay.
sure.
so this is a priority map that HCT did a number of years ago, identifying So let me, just as a frame of reference, this is the Bank Street bogs here, correct?
Correct.
And then Grassy Pond is over here off of Forest, is it, or is it off of Sisson? Where is?
Forest.
Forest, right. And so are we talking about, this land is protected, we're talking about this chunk of land right here in orange?
This is the.
Oh, here,
This one.
okay.
And the wetland, the wetlands wouldn't be incorporated. There's a
Okay.
very small, there's a little bit of upland right here.
Right, you've
Off
mentioned
Grassy
that
Pond
before.
Circle, but otherwise than that, and there's, we have a dike, or under the water here with an old culvert, this all used to be cranberry bogs. So there's a little bit of upland there, a little bit of upland here, not too much, it's pretty much all wet, it's all old cranberry bog.
And then what about this section up here? Is that?
That was not part of this. I can't remember, honestly, I'd have to look about if that, so orange is your,
So this is just a.
tax
this-
list?
No, this here, on this particular map, it's an open space, protection priority sort of list. So this is in the 4 to 6, range
wet,
out
so
of
it's
10
hard to develop anyway.
to be protected, correct.
Do we have a map number or an owner name or anything for it? So
we
I
do.
can-
The owner is Morris, but,
For most of this
It's
down here.
Chestnut Trust.
yeah,
Yeah.
Patricia Markoff. I think
Markoff,
that's the
sorry.
last
Who
one.
owns the
22.
they do,
They do.
the
Okay.
So-
Markoff family.
Most of
Okay.
the property is wetlands, almost.
It's
Yeah.
20, it says 21 acres of bog.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
basically.
21 plus or minus.
Thanks.
And so it's really, so the grass pond, I thought it was grassy pond, but it's grass pond?
We actually have a grassy pond that's
Oh,
over
okay.
here.
Oh, okay,
I've
all right,
always
so
called it grassy.
I do too.
grass pond or whatever. So most of this is almost, it's beyond the pond frontage, correct? I mean,
It is, the pond.
I know there's wetlands here. So how far, how much land, I mean, are we talking, is there like 100-foot buffer through the wetlands to where this owner has property?
It's all
lines?
wet.
It's all
It
just
is
wet.
wetlands,
Yeah, it is all
Yeah,
wet.
it's
There's
not
no,
developable.
yeah.
So it's
Right.
more just for control
Yes.
that we want it.
Yeah, so we can contribute.
And there's been talk about doing some kind of collaboration between this and this in terms of some restoration.
Yeah, and this I think, so we approached DER and Fish and Wildlife with this because Grassy Pond is a grass pond. We have an eel ramp that gets American eels from Cold Brook all the way up. This has historically been a herring run, and they can't get up to Grass Pond anymore. But as soon as late as this past year, Brad Chase, who's our chairman on conservation and works for Division of Marine Fisheries, he witnessed about 50 herring trying to get up. So
And why can't they get up?
it's too big of to get underneath the road and then make the jump where
Yeah.
the culvert is for the old cranberry bog
Yeah.
stuff. On this side, they can't make that jump.
It's not an appropriate ladder.
Yeah. So we're starting to
So that's something
study
that
this area.
they would like to restore the ability for the herring to,
Get
Thinking
up.
about it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably makes sense for closing this property, no matter what, just to clean it up, and
Right.
that's one of the things we're trying to do, regardless of
Right.
conservation.
So would this allow the town to open the herring run, or?
It might help them with
Might help
that
it.
consideration. They wouldn't necessarily do that.
Right.
I mean, I think for the purposes of now, we should try and foreclose
Foreclose
on
on
the
it.
property, because that makes sense no matter what.
Well, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, do we have the, I don't have the property number.
I
I
can
have
get.
on me.
we can fill that in. I
Okay.
used to have it.
Is that what you just gave
I
me?
do have it, hold on. I have it in this thing here. Sorry,
Alright.
I do. Hold on.
There's the assessors.
This was one of our pieces, remember? Here, I got it right here. It was considered 0 Grassy Pond Road. That might be grass, I don't know.
No, it is
Map-
Grassy Pond Road. Yeah.
Map 22, parcel M1 and parcel S3.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is what you and I had, this
Yep,
was from you.
I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll move to request that the tax collector foreclose upon the mentioned properties.
Or pursue foreclosure proceedings, because we
Yeah.
don't know what will
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, right.
I mean, they could get the
Sure.
tax owners to
Yeah.
pay
Yeah, because they'll have to be given notice.
Yeah, yeah,
of doing
absolutely.
this, So
Mhm.
they may in fact.
for map 22, parcel M1 and parcel S3.
Yes. That's totaling approximately 21 acres.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
A second to that motion?
Parcel S3, did I hear? Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. We will move on that.
Was there something else?
Yes.
Another
Well,
parcel?
I could do it at the end, but I, just so you know, one of the ones that I recently referred to you is one that they've approached HCT, and HCT has, either because of the price or priority, is not deemed it a priority right now. It actually is something that's in front of conservation currently. And has had one hearing for us to define the resource, do a resource area delineation. It's this one right here.
So could you give us just a?
So it's
where are we?
so this is 1039 Route 28, I believe. 1039 or 1037.
Mm-hmm,
It's the Chase family.
mm-hmm.
And they've come to the Conservation Commission for us to weigh in on the wetland resource delineation. It does abut the Herring River and has a coastal bank. Red River, sorry, Red River. So it's this one right here. There's one house on it currently. It is pretty high and like there's a lot, it is mostly upland, and it kind of quickly goes down to the river area here. Conservation, asked them to do a little bit more investigation on the property before we weigh in on the delineation. The delineation is gonna determine the the buildability essentially of that lot for that family. It does abut conservation land, and across the river is cemetery department for town of Chatham. So it has not officially come to you yet, but I have told the representative and the attorney that if they wanted to, that this is the proper way, if they were to see because the owner evidently wants the town, or wants to keep it in conservation, but wants to retain their homestead of the one house. So I said, well, if you're interested in talking to the town, you come to real estate and open space, and so that one may come to you.
So, just to get my bearings here,
So it's Depot.
that's Depot, correct? And
Yeah.
so this is the town line?
Yeah, you're right on the line.
This is right
So
on the town line,
Red
so it's-
River is the town line.
Red River Creek.
Creek that goes up.
Creek.
Yeah.
And so this is like sort of like the last property before it crosses over into Chatham
Yep.
on 28?
It is zone 2, because here's water department.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of a new one on the
And do you know
radar.
the size of it? Looks pretty
9
big.
point,
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Three?
Almost 10.
between 9 and 10 acres.
Yeah.
And is it, it's not developable
There's
or?
one, no, it is.
That's
It is.
about
It's upland,
It is.
yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
I mean,
5, 6 houses.
yeah.
Mm,
Yep.
No, it's a really nice property
mm.
that should be considered. I'll have to see,
We'll see if they come to you.
yeah.
So,
up to
so what
them.
is it they're looking for? Kind of missed that. They want to,
From what
Keep
from
the
what I
house.
understand, they want to keep the house, or the homestead and the family. Well, that's what they wanted the trust to do. But the land, they don't want to see the land developed if they can help it, from what I understand.
Mhm.
Possibility to cut it up too, to kind of like conserve the half towards the river and maybe. they
Right.
could-
Right, so, that's what I heard from their representative, and I said, well, right now, they're just essentially vetting their options by getting this delineation done. Getting that delineation done is gonna go a long way to seeing what the property would be appraised.
so they're just looking to put a conservation restriction on part of the property or all?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, they came forward, they had some questions. I said, well, if you want to discuss it further, come to
So
real
it's
estate
not
and open
currently on the
space.
market, it's
No,
just being talked
Nope.
about? Okay,
It was the early stages of,
Yes.
surveying and.
yeah. Which part of the property is the house on?
right up by the road, right up
Okay.
in here.
Oh,
Kind of the middle by the road.
Yeah, in the middle by the road.
And,
Probably, actually, it's probably set almost 100 feet back.
Yeah,
The house from
yeah,
the
it's
road.
got, it's a pretty nice
Mm.
place.
Yeah.
Old Cape Cod style.
Mhm.
So what did you say the owner was doing now, as far as moving forward?
Well, they're not moving they're not selling or anything.
Right.
They've gone to the Conservation Commission to get what we call a resource area delineation, where the wetlands are, and then that will determine potential buildability for the lots and value of the property.
So conservation will do that, do a resource area
We will
delineation?
confirm it, yeah, at some
Okay.
point.
and how do you do that?
They file, they get a land survey. They pick up all the resource areas. We had questions at the last meeting of, where exactly the riverfront was, so they're gonna reevaluate that before the
Who's
next
we?
meeting.
When you say that?
What commission?
The commission, sorry.
The
Conservation
Conservation Commission?
Yeah.
So do you use the town surveyor to?
No, they have their own survey, they have a surveyor. They provide us what they think the resource area is.
They, the owner,
They, the owner, meaning their survey.
their survey. Oh, their
And
survey.
we confirm or deny it. We
Okay.
have not done that yet because we just want to check on the riverfront area.
Right. But for you guys to confirm or deny their survey,
Mm-hmm.
But, well,
What do you have
we
to
use
do?
our own knowledge and experience. Then
Yeah.
if there's real questions, we would hire a
Right.
third
Okay.
party.
We haven't gotten to that.
okay,
hiring
no, I was
third
just kind of
party yet.
curious as to the process.
The, so the coastal bank, which is a resource area for us, is fairly well-defined, in terms of slope or flood zone. It really is where that river area is, which is the mean high water line of the river, and if it's the creek edge or if it's towards the bottom of the bank, there's 200 feet from that. Not necessarily unbuildable, but it's a 200-foot,
Buffer, yeah.
Buffer.
resource in
Yeah.
and of itself, actually.
Yeah, there's no buffer to that resource.
Right. So,
Okay.
we're in the process of that and
So the owner does the survey, and then the Conservation Commission
confirms it.
delineates, oh, they
We
just.
confirm it or deny it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no work has been proposed, there's no subdivision, there's nothing. Yeah, this is very preliminary.
What pond is that?
It's gonna quit.
Oh. Okay.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's a,
Mm.
yeah, I went there for the first time with the Conservation Commission. It's not one you'd go to if you,
There's a little bit of there is a road, access right here,
Mm.
that's about it.
Mm.
One of our commissioners lives on it.
Oh.
there's a herring run that goes to there.
Oh, really? Cool.
From Red River, right?
Wow.
Oh, I know exactly where that is. I know exactly where that is.
So, all right.
Interesting. Any others?
Not that I can remember the addresses too. There's little pieces of, basically, there's been one that's come up and said, well, I mean, they just can't, they owe taxes, but it might be for housing, but I told them to come here and I can't remember the
That's
address
okay.
from what I,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's a tiny piece. Has a house on it. They just wanna get rid of it.
All right. So I think that when we discuss what we want to send to the tax collector in terms of priorities for starting some procedures, both Dave Callahan and I think Marcy,
Yeah, Marcia.
you know,
Mm.
sent in their priorities.
Right,
And
they did.
a big priority for Dave Callahan, of course, was, and
Yeah.
I'm just running this
Yeah,
by
yeah.
you, because it's in conclusion
Right.
with what we
Chatham
discussed,
Road.
was the Chatham
know.
Road area
Yeah.
there. Even though it's a combination of owners unknown and some is
Mhm.
in tax lien, owners
Mhm.
unknown, and some is in tax lien, owners known.
Mhm.
So I think the theory being that if they, you know, if you took something like in the middle and pursued it, it
Right.
would, you know, thwart maybe
Mhm.
some further exploration
Mhm.
by outside parties. But anyway, so,
So it's in tax lien, or they just owe taxes? It's a different.
No, they're in tax lien.
No, they're in tax
But
lien,
some are
okay.
owners unknown and some are owners
Yeah.
known.
Yeah.
This is his,
Oh, they're all in tax lien, but,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, Carol.
yeah, see,
Yep.
they're all from the
Yeah.
house
All right, well, great.
Yep.
All right,
data.
I'm gonna go sit back in the audience unless you need me.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Now, I know this has been a daunting job, but we do need to determine our list of priorities and decide how we're gonna present it to the Board of Selectmen, whether we're gonna separate, just focus on tax lien and do owners unknown another, or do them
Why do
both
we
at
have to
the
go
same
back to the Board of
time?
Selectmen? We already told them everything.
I know.
So why do we have to go
I
back
know.
again?
Well, I think they need a push. But,
Well, we were talking about strategies to move some of these things forward,
Yeah.
and I think one of them is what we just did. And
Right.
that might apply to some other properties, which hopefully will prove to be a good strategy.
I think we need to identify at least 3 for the tax collector to pursue, because, 1 and 2 might simply, once they're pushed, they
Might
might,
show
the
up.
taxes might
Yeah.
get paid, and then those
Right.
properties are,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, I mean,
off the rolls,
I think we
so,
could
so to speak.
limit ourselves too much. I know that one we discussed at the last meeting, the one up north of Robbins Pond.
Yeah,
Right.
so the one that is Westgate, I guess it
yeah,
is.
yeah, Westgate.
I mean, I would be comfortable.
141 North Westgate Road. Well, that's Water
Yeah.
Department.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, what's interesting about that property is that the property next to the water department is owned by the Board of Selectmen. And then
Right.
it's the next one that we were talking about that's in tax lien.
Right.
But it doesn't make any sense if the Board of Selectmen's not gonna turn over the care and custody of that Board of Selectmen property to the water department for them to have the next one. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, I think it still
Or it might put
makes
pressure
sense to move forward with the foreclosure.
I agree.
It's gonna take time, and that, to me, that property should clearly end up with the water department.
I agree.
And, they were saying that they really wanna put a well there. And
Okay,
they
it's actually 0 Woodland Road.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's map 89 parcel G1, 6.5 acres.
yeah.
Um,
Well, how does everyone feel about voting on that one today?
Yeah, Woodland Road was on my priority list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's an important
It
one.
seemed like everybody was,
Because
Yeah.
what we had said was that if the water department is not interested, which we know they are interested,
Right.
yeah,
the extent of their interest, might not go anywhere because they don't have funding, but, they're still interested in pursuing a new well field, correct, up
yeah,
there?
yeah, they seem to be strongly
So,
interested in that.
We recommended that it be acquired by the town and put in the care and custody of the Conservation Commission if it doesn't go into water department protection.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
So
well,
I
that's
think, I
Woodland
agree
Road.
that I think that 0 Woodland Road, which is map 89 parcel G1,
Yeah.
be considered for foreclosure proceedings through the tax collectors department. That's a motion.
That's a motion, I hear a
I'll
second.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we had Gracie Pond and Woodland Road.
Right, and what was Marcia's,
Well, if you're gonna do 3, maybe we need to do one of Dave's, unless you wanna go to
no, I was just asking what her
4.
priorities were.
She just listed, this was the tax lien list.
Mm.
And hers are a piece on Chatham Road, but it's
Mhm.
not near Dave's. Middle Road, which I think we've discussed before,
Mhm.
Middle Road. 2 pieces of property on Bell's Neck, but they're already listed as marsh area, so I don't think
Yeah.
there's
They're
any
not
threat to
developable,
be
yeah.
developed. She also had Grassy Pond on hers. Just 2 things on Forest Street. Same owner as the Grassy Pond property. Seems to own a lot of property that he's not pay taxes on.
So the first one that Dave's highest priority was this first one here. The one that I think directly abuts. It was 33E1.
E1
So,
is 3.32 acres.
yeah, I don't know if it's this first yellow one or this orange one.
Oh, wait a minute.
Hard to say.
Got the other paper. Let's see.
Yeah. Looks like it's in tax lien, owners known.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does have,
Yeah.
3.3 acres.
Yes,
Yeah. Unpaid principal is
5613.
5613. That's unpaid principal, though. I don't know if that's the back taxes. That sounds kind of low.
Yeah, it's been on, it's one of those ones from 2002.
Yeah. So that one's sort of the first one in the line of fire there.
Right. If that's his top priority, then, and
I
it's
mean,
a
I think
tax.
pursuing anything over there is worthwhile.
Yeah, really, and the wells are right, within
Right.
100 feet up there. or something.
Right.
It really should have been dealt with a long time ago.
His second one was,
Do we have a map number or anything for that?
yeah.
Yeah, 33
Yeah.
E1.
And then 33E2, which is not right next to it because there's one that is owned and taxes being paid. It's the next one. So it's this lavender one right here, I think, which is being taxed, owners unknown though.
Where the taxes going to?
Yeah, I don't know, that doesn't,
Yeah.
that doesn't really
Well,
make
it's
sense,
just-
but.
No, it's,
Is it
I have no,
miscellaneous?
it's just being taxed, but they don't know the owners. I don't know.
But if you can't send the bill, then they don't owe it, so that doesn't make
I
sense.
don't
yeah.
know.
Well,
It's,
still adding up, I guess.
it's 2.8 acres.
If you can't send the bill, they can't add it up.
I don't know how this works. Those are worth pursuing, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think one of the first two we voted on are pretty clear cut. There's an owner, there's a tax bill.
Correct.
It should be pretty easy. If there's not an owner, I think it might be more difficult, but.
Well, an owner
Correct.
unknown. Yeah, then we're, owners unknown.
Well, then why
business.
don't we, do you want to stick with what we know? Owners known?
Maybe for today and,
I,
yeah.
All right. Then I'll make a motion for us to ask the tax collector's office to pursue foreclosure proceedings on parcel 33, map 33, parcel E1R, approximately 3.32 acres off of Chatham Road.
Okay, second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Think
Well,
we're
that's
done.
3.
That's 3. Art?
Just to muddy up the waters a little bit. Once
Why
upon a
don't you,
time.
could you come up to?
Yeah, that way
Oh.
you can hear
Yeah.
you.
You have to excuse me, we just came off the surgical table.
Oh, dear.
Oh, boy.
Cataract surgery.
Oh, dear.
Good morning,
Morning.
Madam Chairman. Art Golden. Once upon a time, I was researching a piece of property, and I got to this point where it was sending up the owners unknown. They sent out a tax bill. And so I asked the question, what happens? This is what, if it really is owners unknown, then obviously the tax bill comes back, because you can't deliver it. It's gotta be delivered somewhere. So I asked a particular question, has that one come back? And they said no. But they don't know who the owner is.
Who'd they send it to?
That was a $64 question.
Resident.
So my search took me to the post office. So I went to the postmaster. And this particular address, the tax bill goes out to. And the postmaster said to me, you want to talk to the postal person that makes the delivery. They know where everybody is in town, irregardless of what the address is. So at that point, it kind of fell off the chart.
Oh, I thought you were gonna give us this like
Yeah,
mystery
yeah.
that you
But-
went on,
but
this
anyway,
mystery ride.
You're leaving us hanging.
If you really want to bird dog this thing, you gotta take it as far as, because if the bill doesn't come back, it has to go someplace.
Right.
Right.
Now, is the post office throwing it in the can or putting it in the side? But it's being delivered. They don't do that.
But what that says, though, is that we can pursue foreclosure proceedings on a property because they'll get notification and it is being delivered, it's not being returned. So that's a good thing.
So, but it comes to me now, on this one, it was being delivered in a mailbox that was across the street from the property. And I tried to locate the people, and no one had her home, and one thing does another, kind of fell off the radar. But it was being delivered. Not
But if
to the
somebody's taking mail out of a mailbox.
No, but the postal delivery person was delivering it to the box across the street.
Right.
Because somehow, some way, they knew where that mail should go. There's someone in the other address. So if you want to do a little detective work,
Do a little ride along.
Sure, why not?
while I got your attention, I'm just going to pass this folder, okay? I talked to them the other day.
This
Subject,
everybody.
Owners unknown, yada, yada, yada. We've gone back to.
Jerry Loftus.
And this was Jerry Loftus's folder he had. And it was just, I don't know, it's not gonna help you probably, but it's just gonna give you a little background that a lot of people have tried and very few have succeeded.
Well, gotta keep going.
Well, we're moving right along, so,
Thanks, Art.
thank you, Art.
Thanks.
So is 3 enough? Do we wanna send 3 or do we wanna send any more?
So maybe 3's
I
good
think
for
we're
today.
Good for 3, and then
Yeah, see what happens.
kind of everybody think about some more, and next meeting.
Alright, so Elaine, are you going to,
Let me just, before we
Yeah.
get to that, I received a call from a gentleman, Mr. Rosen. He said he had a piece of property on Queen Anne Road he wanted to sell. I invited him to today's meeting. He hasn't. I did call him back and left a message on his machine about the documents that we would need to see, like the deed and the assessors, and all that. So maybe he's had a problem gathering that information, but until I hear from him, I guess that's on hold.
okay,
Okay, new business, he was under new business. The Affordable Housing Trust meeting on February 13th. I attended, Art attended. I had asked the chair to be put on the agenda, but that never happened. I asked the Charlene, the town planner, about several properties that we had mentioned before, and just wanted an update on what they were looking. One of which, of course, is 70 Willow Street, which had a boundary line dispute that needed to be resolved. At the 2018 town meeting, Article 47 passed that the boundary line should be moved. I checked with Charlene Greenlaw, and she told me it's never been done, it's never been moved. I then emailed the interim town administrator and just asked, how come? Why hasn't it been done? Hasn't it been done? And I haven't got an answer back yet, but I know he's busy, so we'll give that a little time before.
It may have something to do that we haven't had a surveyor for 2 years, which
right.
is causing problems with
Yeah.
conservation enforcement as well, we talked about, so.
They haven't hired somebody yet?
We're not hiring a surveyor. We have an engineer.
Oh, we had a surveyor.
We did, yeah.
Right.
Supposedly that money has been put
towards a pool that we can use to hire out survey
Okay.
services, but we have not been able to yet.
All right.
So, I mean, that does seem reasonable, doesn't really seem like the town needs a full-time surveyor, but
Mhm.
that's coming up in.
Well, again, just like someone to do deed research. It's just,
Well, yeah, surveyors
the
are
money is there, but
pretty
no
straightforward to,
person to do it.
We just, each
Procure.
department, if you have that type of work that needs to be done, it has to kind of be approved to put out a request for those services.
Mm.
So we can't, we need, if conservation needs a land survey, I can't just go out and find somebody, I have to go through
Right.
channels.
Right. So on Willow, that would be up to the town planner to no?
No.
Who would request that?
To request
To
it?
request it.
You could request it, but I would put the request in to, like you did to Joe, but maybe copy Griffin Ryder, he's the town engineer,
Okay.
and both of them are doing procurement.
Okay.
That's a good
Okay,
idea.
Makes sense.
mm.
I mean, because that parcel is already designated for affordable housing.
Right.
And it's just been, and it's in proximity to other affordable housing now. I mean, it's,
And,
you know.
Yeah, and any correspondence you send to Joe, I would copy his administrative assistant on, Patty
Mhm.
McCura,
You're right.
just in case he misses it, she
Mhm.
usually.
Okay. All right, that's a good idea, thank you. And I'd also asked about, was asking about Depot Road, J1, J2, yeah. And the answer was that, well, they're still considering those properties, but their focus right now is on Sisson Road and these other properties. I'll just wait until something comes along. They also mentioned at the meeting, I don't know if you caught it, Art, that assuming they are going to look at tax lien properties for the purpose of foreclosure, using the money then to pay the back taxes, and the balance of the money to go into their fund.
How can they do that? I mean, how can they do that legitimately?
Do not ask me, that's what they said at their meeting.
No, they can look into it.
They have the right to buy and sell property.
No, of course they do,
Yeah.
but the tax money has to go back into the town coffers.
Right. So they're
Right.
taking part of the income from the sale of the property, and they're gonna pay the back taxes, and then whatever's left over is gonna go into their account. That's the way they said it.
But how do they,
They have to own it first in order
yeah,
to
how
do
do they
that.
sell it if there's back taxes
They have,
unpaid?
wouldn't the Affordable Housing Trust have to
Well, they
own
could,
the property?
well, then they could
Yeah.
use, they have money in their account, they could
Pay the back
Purchase it.
taxes?
purchase.
Purchase whatever, pay
Right.
off the tax, then you
Right.
purchase
And
the
then
property, that's what you're
right,
talking about.
yeah.
They can't just,
Yeah.
yes,
Right.
okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
So, I'm not quite clear on who they expect to identify these properties, but maybe your housing committee will be given that task, Art.
Could be.
I would think that's where it should go, not here.
The thing with Will Street, 70 Will Street, it shouldn't raise more than one red flag, because,
Oh, you need to come back up. Sorry.
okay? On 70 Will Street, that was Article 47 in year 2018 town meeting.
Right.
Now, everyone, we voted on it, voted in affirmative, and then basically everyone went back to sleep, but it never got done. So that, it begs to ask the question, what else does the town vote on and never gets done?
But that's not for us to
I
discuss.
know it doesn't, but that's, it's annoying.
Just do it.
Right, and right
Agreed.
now, the message came down that everybody is working in because of the water project and this and that, because the Affordable Housing Trust is stopped basically right now from going forward on the system of the project because you can't get an RFP written.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy and I attended the Southeastern Mass Land Trust Convocation on February 1st, Kathy, would you like to
Sure.
report on our
Uh,
excursion?
So this was basically a conference of land trusts from southeastern Massachusetts and the Cape. There's probably about 125 people that attended. So it was pretty well attended. And one of the workshops that Elaine and I participated in was basically about mapping. And it was presented by a land trust. So that's a sort of a little bit different orientation anyway. But one of the things that they talked about was how Harwich was sort of a leader in this mapping thing, which refers to basically to this map right here, which is a mapping of priority properties, okay? And what they talked about was the intersection of priorities, availability, and properties that were in a threat sort of zone. And where the intersection of those were, they created a list, I mean, a map of properties that they would want to target, and then how they went about systematically approaching, the potential preservation of a lot of these properties. Being a land trust, strategically, they could identify and reach out to landowners, okay? They have land acquisition priorities like high habitat value, whether it could be used for passive recreation, what kind of community value it had, whether it had linkage, whether it was, they took into consideration neighborhoods and geographic sort of equity having to do with that. What they used for their evaluation tools were a land acquisition review committee, screenings, which included site visits and parcel evaluation systems. They report to boards with parcel scores and then recommend certain strategies. Now, what was interesting about this was that, and it came up in the meeting, was that it's different for land trusts versus a town real estate and open space committee or a land acquisition committee that's sponsored by the town, in that, we're a public entity, so to speak, and we just can't target, potential properties and, because we have open meeting law, the land trusts do a lot of their work sort of, it's private, so there's a big difference. And also the funding sources, are different and what you can do with the funding sources. Because ours are usually tied to, at least for the last few years, Community Preservation Act funds, there's a whole different, criteria. So it was a little bit different for land trusts versus town committees to do this kind of thing. But they were encouraging all the towns to pursue some kind of a mapping system consistent with what Harwich has already done in prioritizing areas in town where we would like to focus. The other thing that they talked about was, we had a discussion, there was a presentation about cranberry bogs and how there was this, unfortunately the cranberry industry is declining, and then there was a movement towards what was going to happen with over 5,000 acres of bogs on the Cape, and that action is going to be required. There's so much out-of-state competition now. In fact, one of the biggest competitors is Wisconsin now. They've gone way up in cranberry production versus the Cape. And it started like in about 2000 was about the downturn. So they did have some people question what kinds of things will we do with the cranberry bogs. And they talked about solar arrays, residential sort of potential. They talked about bog abandonment. There was somebody who stood up and said, well, I'm a cranberry bog owner. What do I tell my family? What are you gonna offer me in terms of incentives to pursue something versus using all the uplands surrounding the bogs for development? They didn't have a lot to offer them just yet. They had, a price per acre that they had been working with, but they didn't have a lot.
Well, it depends if there's an upland bog or a wetland.
Right. So it was an interesting discussion,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
So it was, we found it to be informative, correct?
Yeah, I made copies of.
Oh, yeah, this
the
was great. I meant to
evaluation
mention
sheet.
this. They had an evaluation sheet that, obviously, like I said, they're a land trust, but it was a great evaluation sheet.
Yeah.
And I think we should
Make copies.
maybe upgrade our evaluation sheet to include some of this, because it really was, excuse me, a great scoring system. So,
Yeah, I have some of the ones that we've used in the past. And although some of this is similar, you know, to what we, but it really is an extensive,
yeah,
even to talking about the natural vegetation and everything, and a scorecard for conservation. It really is much more detailed and extensive than what
Yeah.
we've done in the past. So we might want to look it over and kind of think about, okay, you know, coming
Yeah.
up with our own list, incorporating some of their ideas.
did you want one of these, Amy? Can she
Yeah,
have one of
oh,
these?
sure, but here, I have.
I have
extra
mine from
copies.
the meeting. This was really an excellent list.
Thank you.
I have one.
Interested, Art?
Did you get one?
I got one, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Mine is like from water. I ironed it. Did you start? I did on.
Right, that was it. Anyway, it was interesting.
Some more Jerry stuff.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay, that's a takeaway project. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, it was very interesting, and it was a worthwhile thing to attend. It was very interesting. Next on the agenda is our next meeting date.
This had,
Um,
I
and-
don't know if it was discussed when I wasn't here or something. Did, as far as Cherokee Road goes, were we just unable to get the appraisal? Is that why it was
You want to give an update?
dropped, or?
Yeah, we did not obtain the, couldn't get the appraisal because we couldn't get the other documents that they required.
From the owner.
From the owner and the attorney, in time. So we just withdrew the application.
So, I mean.
I mean,
sure-
it can be brought back again at
Yeah.
some point for next year, but, just
Yeah,
couldn't
in
do
my
it.
opinion, it's still an important piece. They now have it actively listed for sale as 2 lots.
Well, they do.
So
They do.
they apparently have
and what value did they put?
document. The best I could tell, they were still just asking 365, but I don't know if I read the listing right. I was just looking at my phone, but
Oh, okay.
they do now show it as 2 separate lots.
Huh.
So,
So it's a 365 for the entire thing, or?
you know, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like on the listing, but it doesn't
Okay.
really make sense. You would think they would ask more.
Well, at the time that Elaine had to make a decision about
Yeah.
presenting
Right.
CPC,
Yeah.
it was not listed. It was, had been taken
Yeah,
off,
that's
and
only-
we were not able to get any of the information needed, so
Right.
she had no choice but to pull the application.
They relisted it 10 days ago, I believe.
Huh.
I just saw it,
Wow.
you know.
Oh, wow.
That's
And-
unfortunate, I mean, there was an opportunity lost.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it is necessarily. I mean, these things
Oh.
take time, and that's. But I think the lesson is that we might need to start now if we're gonna proceed with that, or you know, continue to take action on that.
Yeah,
You mean on Cherokee?
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what are you proposing? That we prepare for, you mean get into the game?
Well, I mean, that was coming through Mike, and I haven't talked to Mike about it in the
Yeah.
past month, whether they still want to move forward. I could
Yeah.
I could
It would be
talk.
up to Harwich Conservation Trust.
You know, we could do it independently,
Yeah.
but it would be better probably
Yeah.
if they. So maybe I'll talk to Mike and see if they're still interested in pursuing that.
I mean, because if they're interested in pursuing it, they can always do a purchase and hold, like
Right.
they've done with the compact before.
Yeah.
And then we pursue other avenues of funding through the channels that we know, even though it's gonna take, another 15 months.
Right.
Or whatever, but
Yeah,
it could be,
it
yeah.
all takes.
Yeah.
You know, we
No.
we started it last year in May and basically ran out of time. You
Yeah.
know, so I mean, it might just.
All right.
Take longer. And those people have been back and forth
Right.
on that property for years, so,
Yeah.
but from a conservation perspective, it's a keystone
Yeah,
piece.
no,
It's,
I think we
Oh, I
all
think
agree.
everybody agreed, even,
And
you know, everybody agreed
the
on that.
price is not, you know, when I look at it in comparison to the handler's property, it's a far higher priority. Because I think the private sector will ultimately take care of that property and have to deal with all the wetland buffers and mitigation, and that'd be nice to do that, but this one is connecting, you know, a couple hundred acres to a few hundred acres, and
Right.
I feel like if it falls, the others will likely fall on the other side, and it's just, we're gonna lose one of our last
Where's
large.
Cherokee on this map?
Okay.
Just as a, is it over here someplace? So let's see, so here's,
Well, it's gotta be up there.
It's this,
I-
it's this property
This
right
right
here.
right
here,
there,
that
okay,
red.
that's right,
The
that's what I
red.
thought, okay, so
Yeah.
it's close to bordering
So
Fox.
they're selling this as a waterfront lot, and they're
Okay.
selling this as a building.
And are they using Nathan Walker Road as a
As a road.
dividing sort of thing for access on both sides?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one is one is smaller than the other, obviously.
Yep, this one's only an acre and a half, or
Okay.
it was under 2 acres, and
Yep.
then this one is 5 point
Okay.
something.
Right,
So,
and-
you know, there could be the consideration of purchasing. This one would be the higher priority.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, now that
So-
it's in 2 lots.
Now that they're
We
literally.
could pursue a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's an option.
And just as a point of reference, it is in the highest priority
Yeah.
open space ranking on this map.
Right, right.
Just as a
It's, to me,
point
it's
of
a.
reference. So,
Okay.
Well, if I could reach out to Mike
Yeah,
and see
see
if they're
what
still
he's-
interested.
yeah, especially given that we might be able to pursue
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be, but remember back at the beginning, we asked them if we could, they'd be interested in that.
And, you know, I don't think they've actually, so I guess they're basically, they didn't subdivide it, they're just saying
Saying it's
that because
developable.
this is a legal road, which I do know that that is a legal
Yeah,
road, that's gone, it's been in litigation in the past few years from the end of Jay-Z. They claimed that, that was their property and tried to close the road. It went to court and it was declared,
Right, they had
this
to-
has
right.
been a road for hundreds of years,
Right.
and they had to open it back up.
Mm.
So
Okay.
is all they're saying is that we have this property, there's a road that separates it, which makes it 2 lots, which is,
Well, but see, now that they're declaring that, they must have some reason to know that that is,
well, it's just,
Correct.
that's what I've been saying the whole time. If you have a road and the property.
but when they
it's-
first declined
Yeah.
our initial overtures of either a
They didn't want-
conservation restriction or easement over
They
the
didn't
property.
want to separate it.
They didn't want to
Yeah.
separate it, but now they might be more amenable to something like that. Since
Yeah.
we can use the Nathan Walker Road as a dividing line.
Right. To me, that was the reality, and I don't know why it got confused.
Maybe a tax credit on that parcel would be helpful in, you know, pushing them in the right
Yeah.
I mean, the
direction too.
town's still assessing it as one parcel, so
Yeah.
there's some gray
Yeah.
area there.
Right, right.
And, you know, I think that, you know, there might be some sort of fight if it actually goes to be developed, because they would also be grandfathered from 6 ponds districts, rather than have the 300-foot buffer zone on the pond, they would just have the regular old rules where they could build up to 60 feet from the pond. So it's,
Right.
it's a really important piece. It would really change the character of the whole Hawks Nest area for that.
Right. All right, so it'd be
So-
good, follow up with Mike,
Yeah.
Harwich
yeah,
Conservation,
yeah.
and see what his thoughts are on it. And we'll keep it on the back burner for now, and see what we can do. Anyone else, any comment? Carol, anything? Okay, next meeting date, March 20th?
All right, make a motion
Sound
to
good?
adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you, Amy. We off?